You could hear the roar of the tornado getting louder and louder.
It came up from the southeast. Tornadoes are not supposed to do that.
Looked out the window, just saw a black cloud, and I said, "Heather, run."
I put my hands over my head. I collapsed.
She looked up at me and she said, "Mom, your house." And I said, "That's okay. Is there a 2x4 sticking out of my head?"
From the Weather Channel, this is Storm Stories with meteorologist Jim Cantori.
Right, I think the next tornado's going to be right here.
I think it's going to be right there. May 17th, 2000. Veteran storm chaser Jeff Petrosky is driving through southwest Nebraska, doing what he loves most, tracking tornadoes.
445. Off my northwest shoulder.
You can get up in the morning, you can look at the data and drive hundreds of miles to your destination, and out of the clear blue skies, you see this Mother Nature just erupt in front of you.
39-year-old Petrosky and his chase partner Brian Sturtz are following a powerful storm system associated with a dramatic drop in temperature. A cold front has pushed away a late spring heat wave. Yesterday, the temperature was above 90 degrees, but today it's only 54 and rainy.
I remember thinking, this is going to be a really wild day because we have this extreme air masses battling each other out here in the plains, and I knew something big was going to happen.
In the nearby town of Maxwell, Heather Taylor has no idea something big is going to happen. The 22-year-old college student is driving in the rain to visit her mother, Sue. Divorced for 3 years, Sue now lives on a farm where she raises goats.
She not only had 3 children, she had about 60 children with all the goats.
For years now, she and her mom have tried to change each other. Sue thinks her daughter is too serious and needs to lighten up, while Heather often tells her mother to act more like an adult.
You have to grow up, you have to do your responsibilities, you have to take care of things. And my mom was always the goofball.
I have a very optimistic attitude. I mean, I'm always live for the day, seize the day.
That outlook may work for Sue most of the time, but today will be different. Around 4 p.m., Heather arrives at her mom's. Soon after, they hear that a tornado warning has been issued for their area. Twisters here almost always come from the west, so Sue looks out a west-facing window. When she sees no sign of a tornado, she assumes they're safe. But Heather is not convinced.
She said, "Well, maybe I'd better head in to town. The weather doesn't look real good." And I told her, "Well, just sit tight."
11 miles southeast of the Taylor farm, Jeff Petrosky and his storm-chasing partner are in their SUV watching the thunderstorm. Suddenly, 2 tornadoes corkscrew to the ground.
2 tornadoes.
They quickly die out, but Petrosky is convinced another twister is possible.
We knew that we were in what I call the best location because we had the most unstable air mass, we had the best shear where the winds are turning the most, and if there's going to be a tornado, it should be right where we was at.
Petrosky is right.
I got a gigantic, oh my gosh, can produce a big tornado. Right, it's got a big cone coming down.
At 5:15 p.m., a large tornado roars to life. It's an F3, the middle of the Fujita scale, which rates the twister's strength. Petrosky isn't phased. He sets up his gear on what would normally be the most dangerous spot, to the east of the funnel.
We had the engine running, the doors open, the cameras rolling, waiting for the tornado to come our direction, but it never did. It fooled us, and it actually went to the northwest.
Petrosky is shocked. This storm system is moving so slowly that it doesn't have the power to push the tornado east. The twister moves west instead, away from the storm chasers and toward the Taylor farm. Inside the farmhouse, Heather and Sue Taylor continue scanning the western sky. There's no tornado in sight, but the weather is getting worse.
It started raining, it started hailing, rather cloudy outside.
The electricity goes off and Heather gets even more concerned. She asks her mother if they should take shelter in the storm cellar behind the farmhouse. Sue looks outside again. There's still no sign of danger from the west. She tells her daughter not to worry.
And I said, what are the chances of it hitting us? We're out in the middle of nowhere. We're in the middle of alfalfa fields. It's not going to hit this one little spot in all of this land.
5:20 p.m. About 9 miles southeast, another weather watcher is not fooled. He's a 12-year-old English setter named Champ. Champ has arthritis, but that does not interfere with his ability to predict bad weather.
He walks around with his head up a little bit, and he just kind of smells, and I don't think he sees real good anymore anyway, but it's all in the smell.
Champ's owners, 58-year-old Brad Stickleman and his wife Janine, run this 340-acre cattle ranch. Today, Brad is watching the skies and his dog's strange behavior. Champ is barking frantically to get inside the house.
He's an outdoor dog, and he liked to be outdoors, and he just never was in the house hardly at all. He was trying to get to the house and opened up the door, and he ran right straight down the basement.
Brad knows immediately that something has spooked Champ. He looks to the east and sees a towering funnel barreling toward his ranch. Champ's barking had worked like a canine warning system.
I'm sure that he can smell it without a doubt, but I think a lot of it is nature.
Stickleman rushes inside. He and Janine join Champ in the basement. Less than a mile away, Jeff Petrosky and his partner arrive at the edge of the Stickleman's ranch. They watch in amazement as winds estimated up to 200 miles an hour chew through the fields.
When you see 2-foot diameter trees that are 60, 80 foot high be sucked out of the ground and they disappear in a matter of a couple seconds, you know it's serious.
The men risk their lives to get closer to the funnel, which is almost a quarter of a mile wide.
I'm over taking still photographs of the tornado coming over the ridgeline and into the open field. Brian's behind me filming. You could hear the roar of the tornado getting louder and louder as it was approaching us. And for about 20, 30 seconds, you had us that kind of a cat and mouse game. You was like, well, is it going to come at us, or is it going to turn, or which way is it going to go?
The Twister gets within 300 yards of their SUV, then shifts just enough to miss it.
Luckily, it went west of us, and when it turned, then we were able to hold our position, continue to take pictures and film. It was unbelievable.
The tornado's new course sends it directly over the Stickleman's house. Howling winds shake the walls.
I felt that wall going back and forth. It just kept hitting me in the shoulder. Just suck in and out, and in and out, and in and out, and hear the glass break.
Champ is unnerved by the roar and breaks away from his owners. The frightened dog bounds upstairs and charges outside into the ferocious storm. After several agonizing moments, the tornado passes. The Stickleman's house has survived the Twister, and when Brad comes out of hiding, he immediately goes looking for Champ. But his storm-savvy dog is nowhere in sight.
He doesn't roam or anything. He just only stayed home. But after that tornado, he was gone. We didn't know where he went to.
Just northwest of the ranch, the F3 tornado shows no sign of stopping.
It crosses the Jeffrey Reservoir. You actually see the water slosh out of the canal, and then it gets sucked up into the tornado, and the tornado actually goes from black to kind of a black and white swirl. I've never seen anything like it before. The next amazing thing was the lightning bolt that came down next to the tornado out in the field, and the tornado continued to go faster and faster to the west.
It zeroes in on the town of Maxwell, Nebraska, and on Sue Taylor's farmhouse. 5:30 p.m. Heather and Sue are in the living room. Sue is confident there is no danger until she checks the weather from an eastern window.
Looked out the window, just saw a black cloud, and I said, Heather, run.
There was a great wall of black right on the other side of the mailbox, and the mailbox had to be about 30 feet away.
The two women head for the storm cellar, but to get there, they'll have to leave the house. And there's just no time.
I knew we'd be outside when it hit, so we just turned and stood in the doorway.
I remember just looking up at this beast. It was just black, and it was just coming right at us.
May 17th, 2000, just after 5:30 p.m. An F3 tornado is running roughshod over the open plains of southwest Nebraska. It is traveling in a northwest direction, perpendicular to most twisters. The element of surprise increases its danger. In the town of Maxwell, 200-mile-an-hour winds tear at the home of Sue Taylor and her daughter Heather. Sue pushes Heather to the floor and then tries to cover her.
She was kind of crouched with her knees bent and her shoulders hunched over me.
The full force of the F3 twister slams into the house.
It kind of felt like you were being sucked and tumbled at the same time. At one point, you kind of looked up and you saw boards flying over you and just mostly debris. I mean, nothing really registered except for darkness.
Mother and daughter have nowhere to hide as the powerful twister unleashes its fury.
I just felt things hitting against me and brushing up against me. And about the time that I saw the boards rip off the house, I couldn't hear anything. My ears kind of popped.
It happened so fast you couldn't even realize what was going on. It was color, house, and then black and mayhem.
Sue digs in and shields Heather from the house that's falling apart around them.
I'm laying there looking up and seeing my mom, like Wonder Woman almost, standing there kind of riding out the storm, and her arms are kind of crouched and in a humped shape, like she was protecting me.
While glass and rocks lash Heather's legs, Sue endures the worst of the attack.
Something hit me real hard in the head. It hit actually right behind my ear. It came right behind my ear and went all the way to the corner of my eye.
The terrified mother and daughter see furniture being tossed by the wind. Suddenly, the refrigerator topples over, and the grand piano careens across the floor. The heavy objects wedge against the doorway and stop. A few more inches, and they would have crushed Sue and Heather.
The fridge and the piano kind of fell in together over the top of us, so it created a little bit of a cave.
Then just as suddenly, a hush falls over the farm.
It was just loud noise and then very quiet almost instantly.
The tornado has passed.
I kind of looked down and I said, "Heather, are you okay?" And she looked up at me and she said, "Mom, your house." And I said, "That's okay. Is there a 2x4 sticking out of my head?"
Sue has several cuts on her face and arms. Her wrist is badly hurt. Heather has deep gashes on her legs. They struggle to dig out from beneath the shattered house and find help. The tornado continues northwest, leaving the ruined farmhouse in its wake. Storm chaser Jeff Petrosky is driving close behind the twister as it heads for the next town.
The tornado and me were in parallel going down Interstate 80. I thought it was going to cross 80, but it never did. So again, Mother Nature pulled another surprise on me.
Petrosky and his storm-chasing partner videotape the tornado as it starts to die out.
And watch the tornado go from this quarter-mile-wide tornado, and then it weakens slowly until the entire storm shrinks, and you see the tornado disappear.
Big time rope out stage. One of the more dramatic rope out stages I've seen in a long time.
He goes into what we call a classical rope out stage. And they get real small, and it does a real tiny little rope. It's almost like a pencil.
By now it's 5:35 p.m. In just 20 minutes, the tornado has traveled 11 and a half miles. Along the way, It's taken out 50 power lines and destroyed numerous homes and businesses. Several people are injured. Luckily, there are no fatalities. Sue and Heather Taylor make their way through the wreckage of their leveled farmhouse.
I don't know how to explain the adrenaline rush. It's like you have to take care of business, okay? I can walk. I'm moving around. Heather can walk. She's moving around. Okay, let's take care of what else needs to be taken care of.
Despite their injuries, they try to round up Sue's frightened animals.
I kind of looked back in the barn. The dust was starting to settle. It was still pretty dark in there.
Sue is shocked to see that most of the animals have survived the direct hit.
I just saw these blinking eyes in this dark, dark barn with all this dust. Little eyes, big eyes, all just kind of looking out.
Heather finds her mother's cat, frightened but unharmed. She holds the skittish pet as she looks around. What she sees is unrecognizable.
The trees were all destroyed. It seemed like everything was crying, and the colors were all kind of washed away.
Around 5:45, emergency crews drive by and see the mother and daughter. Paramedics convince them to go to the hospital. There, both women receive stitches for their cuts, and doctors discover that Sue's wrist is broken. Heather is amazed at her mother's resilience.
I do remember my mom sitting on a stretcher and the doctor sitting there stitching up the cut near her eye. And she said, "Well, hey, look at everybody who's here. We could order a pizza and have a party." It made me feel more grateful that I survived.
9 miles southeast, Brad Stickleman and his wife Janine are also grateful to be alive and unharmed. But they're worried about their dog, Champ. His barking was the only warning before the twister hit. Now their faithful pet with the nose for weather is gone.
We kept hollering for him, and we just figured it got him. Figured he was dead.
What remains of the updraft spun out.
It's 6:15 p.m. on May 17th, 2000.
On the ground, very weak.
An F3 tornado has cut a swath across southwest Nebraska. Several people are injured, and the landscape is littered with destruction. Cattle rancher Brad Stickleman and his wife Janine have survived the twister, but now their beloved dog Champ is nowhere in sight.
But I never expected him to be alive.
Just minutes after the tornado, storm chaser Jeff Petrosky happens to be across the street from the Stickleman's ranch, retracing the twister's path.
The trees are upside down. They're uprooted in the front yard and around the house. There's debris everywhere. And to my amazement, I saw this dog walking out, kind of out of the weeds.
Oh, he's limping. He got hurt.
Champ has somehow made it through the storm. Now the arthritic dog looks for a little attention from Petrosky.
Come here, bud. You okay, baby? Oh man, you okay, honey? You okay, babe? Poor guy. Oh, you just survived a big F3, didn't you? Wow. You okay, baby? Oh my gosh.
We stopped and gave him a little bit of 10-11 care for a few minutes and let him know everything's going to be okay.
Soon afterwards, Champ finds his way home, where he's happily reunited with his owners.
I was real glad to see him. I sure was. I've been around a long time, you know.
From now on, the Sticklemans plan to keep Champ close to home. They believe he could be their best defense if another twister heads their way.
We watch him all the time. If the weather kind of looks a little rough, we just look for Champ. He'd be a good weatherman. Put him on the Weather Channel. He'd know.
The Sticklemans aren't the only family with something to celebrate. Though Sue Taylor's house is destroyed, her relationship with her daughter is more solid than ever. The harrowing experience of the tornado brought the two closer together.
I've always been real optimistic and happy-go-lucky, which used to get on her nerves. I think anymore she appreciates that, and she realizes that you should live for the day.
This was truly a life-changing experience for me because it made me really look at myself and say, you know, I think I want to be more like my mom.
Can animals really predict changes in the weather? We'll tell you when Storm Stories returns. So can animals really predict changes in the weather? It's a difficult question to answer. Many pet owners notice erratic behavior from their cats and dogs before an earthquake or thunderstorm. One theory is that animals sense the change in barometric pressure, or are better able to hear distant thunder or feel ground tremors. Swallows are famous for flying low before a rain because the insects they feed on are not carried as high up on the warm thermal currents during cloudy days. For Storm Stories, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori. Your local forecast is next.
This is the worst storm in the history of the
Chapter 1960. Yeah.